I messed up. I messed it up. What is going on, you guys? Okay, so that was an overlay that I had that I stuck in there by accident. I'm using a platform called StreamYard to do my live broadcast. And sometimes you click on the wrong thing. It's okay, though. It happens. It's not a matter of if something's going to go wrong. It is a matter of when. But hello, you guys. What's going on? I want to know who's here. I want to know who's watching. We are broadcasting in multiple locations. So we are actually live on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So if you are new here to either myself or my guest, Krystal, please type new in the comments something. And if you're new here, that means you're new to me. So my name is Melanie Diane Howe, and I help entrepreneurs put themselves out there using social media and modern marketing. I am very, very much into live video. I think it's one of the best formats you can do. And I also have a podcast called DIY Marketing School with Melanie Diane Howe. So that's actually one of the funny things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to decide between having a podcast, having a video of, marketing business, meaning like you're on YouTube all the time, or just sticking with, blogs, like the old written formats, the copy blog. So today I have a guest, Krystal Proffitt. She's one of my very good friends. She is a published author. She has a book called How to Start a Bingeworthy Podcast. It's awesome. She also is a course creator, and she has a membership. So I'm going to let her tell you all about that here in a second. I'm going to bring Krystal on. But I want to know who's here. I see that we've got Marissa here. Hello, Marissa. How are you? Hope you're doing well today. So you guys, we're going to get into this today. We're going to basically talk about the differences between podcasting and vlogging and blogging. And we're going to help you decide which format you should use. This question comes up all the time when I am talking with people about their marketing strategy. And I know that Krystal said it comes up when she talks to her students and her audience as well. So I thought, I don't want to do this by myself. This is a juicy topic. So I am bringing on Krystal. So Krystal, I'm going to bring you up in the stream. We're going to do this, sister.
All right. I feel like we need to dance. It's like,
no, right? We still need to
wait, don't you have your lights, your fancy lights behind you? Like you could.
Oh, yeah.
Like strobe lights or something whenever.
Those particular lights behind me. Wait. I don't think.
No. Don't start sure. Now. Don't start.
Hold on a second. Oh. Wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
They might. Go. Strobe.
Oh! I need to have a disco ball drop down.
I keep adding lights. Great. Watch. Now I won't be able to get it off. Now I won't be able to take it off.
It's going to be distracting the whole time.
Oh my God. It might. I don't know. Blue. Go to blue. Go to blue. Stop. There. Okay. I think I got it. Oh my Lordy. Yeah. I got Addie lights for her birthday. They're all up in her bedroom now, and they have the whole music setting. So if you play music, they will pulse to the music.
I love it.
I think I'm going to have to upgrade. And switch it up. Krystal, how are you today? How are you doing, sister?
I'm so good. So hello, everybody. If you don't know me, thank you so much, Mel, for that awesome introduction. I am just so blessed to know you and get to chat with you literally on an everyday basis.
We're literally every single day.
Back and forth. And it's just so much fun because y'all, like you may see like, oh, here's Melanie, like she's excited about video. Here's Krystal, they're excited about podcasting. But you get us together and the geekiness, it's just off the charts on what we just geek out about and just freak out about and the ideas that come around. So I'm excited to talk to you. Like you said, this question comes up all the time, or people say, I want to be in front of the camera, but I don't know that video is right for me. I think I want to do a podcast, but I don't know if I have a voice for a podcast. And I hate writing, but I feel like blogging should be the thing that I do. So yeah, like let's just start at the top. Like,
right.
I do this a lot where people have me on as like an interview and I'm like, oh, actually I'm going to turn into the interviewer. I'm going to ask you, if you were to go back to the very beginning of your business, knowing everything you know today, what would you choose?
Why you got to do that to me? Put me in. You didn't even tell me you were going to ask me that question. She's cheating, you guys. She's cheating. Oh my God. Quick little, before I answer that difficult question. If you're watching from a Facebook group, so we are multicasting both inside of my Facebook group, DIY Marketing with Melanie, as well as Krystal's Facebook group. And if you're watching from one of those locations, then what I need you to do is just make sure you have clicked on, there's a link up in the description of our broadcast. Just click on that so that we can see your name and your face when you make a comment, and we may bring you up on screen, just like we've got Omaha Junior Lancers High School Hockey here hanging out with us today. They're a subscriber, looks like over on my channel they came over from the live streaming pros interview I did last week. So yeah, we'd love to see who's commenting. And you guys also, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. We will absolutely be answering questions. So to answer your question, sneaky face. Okay. So if I were knowing what I know now and going back, the funny thing is when I started my business, live video wasn't around. There was no such thing. Well, I mean, technically there was, but not as accessible as it is, of course, for us today. Sure. 100%, I would go with live video. I would, just because for me, I think it's very easy. It's very natural. I love all the ways that we can repurpose it, which I know we may get. We're going to hopefully get a chance to talk to if we have time today about that. But I mean, I probably would embrace the whole video as much as I possibly could. You know what I mean? And it's just crazy because 2014 is when I started my business, and you couldn't go buy a high quality webcam and a USB mic. I mean, literally you can go get an HD webcam for $60 and you can get a pretty dang good USB microphone for the equivalent of the price, and you're ready to go. You know what I mean? So it's just become even more accessible. And I know you talk about this all the time. Podcasting has become so much more accessible. The barrier of entry is so much less than it used to be from a tech standpoint, from an equipment, from a cost. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah. I'll answer it too.
Yeah.
You didn't ask me because I just totally blindsided you with this question.
You did. I'm going to pay you back.
Well, I'm thinking back to my first experience with live video was Periscope. I was terrified, like palms sweaty. Like I remember my heart was going to beat out of my chest. I'm like, I'm going to die. I really just thought I'm going to die doing this live video for the very first time. And then now it's like as natural as you saying, hey, let's have a conversation about podcasting. You know, we're probably going to talk, here's what we're going to talk about. And I'm like, yeah, let's absolutely, let's sign me up. I want to do it. So it took me a while to kind of ease into video because technically I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. I didn't know, do you format a live stream the same way you do a YouTube video? Are they the same? The pre-recorded versus live? And then, so I just had so many questions whenever I first started that if I would have known all that today, I'd still go with the podcast. And the reason why is because with a podcast, you can still repurpose in so many ways. And I would even go as far as to say a live video podcast. So,
oh yeah, because you have one of those.
Like way more than what most people are curious about here today. But hey, Jamie in the house.
We love our Jamie Troll.
But it's like, but yeah, podcasting is so much more accessible. I think live video can be done even with your phone in a really awesome way. So yeah, I know it's kind of nuanced in which one is better for which type of person. So tell me which direction you want to go and we'll go that way.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, why don't we first talk about let's talk about why we're even talking about this, right? So I always call it regular core content. Some people call it weekly core content or whatever. And the reason I say regular is because I know, like, for example, a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of the people in my group or in my audience, they are just getting started. And whenever I say weekly content, it's like, they freak out. They're just like, I barely have time to, operate in my business at all. And so, I want to talk, that's why I always say regular core content. Cause I kind of just want to again, make that space feel a little bit safer. Because, I mean, you and I have talked about this. I do not release a podcast every single week. I am not. I mean, I try, but it's usually like twice a month or something anymore. And I know you're very, very good and very diligent about the consistency. And I know consistency is absolutely one of those things. But I always also tell people, look, if you can't for whatever reason, if it just does not fit right now, then do it as regularly as you can and strive towards the goal of, weekly or bi-weekly at the same day, the same time, whatever that might be. But what we're talking about when we say core content is this is essentially like you and how you help people and what your secret, like what are you the guru of? What are your gifts? Like what's your like the zone of genius, if you will? A lot of people use that. And how can you share that gift with the world? And so it could be a blog post every month or every week. It could be releasing a podcast every single week. It could be, releasing a video every single week. It could be just going live on Facebook once a week or whatever it might be. This is your core content. And what this is essentially like the hub, the core of your knowledge base, right? And it should be helping drive traffic to your website, should be help driving traffic to new lead generations for your email list, things like that. This is the core of your marketing, essentially, from a content standpoint. Do you have anything to add to that, Krystal?
Yeah. I mean, I just think about how we operate as consumers. Like my background is in marketing. Like I went to school, one of my favorite classes, and I tell people this all the time, it was consumer behavior. And consumer behavior has changed 1,000,000% since I was in school. Whenever I was in college, it was like, oh, there's this company, it's called Amazon. Like they just started selling textbooks. Awesome. I can get them cheaper there. Like consumer behavior is totally different now than it was back then. And so now I think of when you're creating content, you are creating like Googling yourself, right? Like if you go Google yourself right now, which just sounds really weird to say that, but if I go Google Melanie Diane Howe, what am I going to find? If I go Google Krystal Proffitt, what are you going to find? And as a business owner, right? Because we're assuming most of you either have a brick and mortar or you have an online business. I want you to like people to find information about you that's helpful, not like, oh yeah, there's their Facebook profile that they've never posted anything on. But what if instead they stumbled upon, oh, they have all of this helpful content. They have all of these resources because without even opening, I could look on the first page of Google, not open a single thing that, let's say I Googled Melanie, not a single thing that she's done, but immediately in my mind, I say, this chick knows her stuff. She's legit because she has information out in the internet that establishes her as someone who regularly talks about this. So whenever I think of core content, I think, how can you have people that are going to go Google you or search for you on YouTube or anywhere else? What are they going to find? If it's nothing, it's a big whopping zero, then you have some work to do. You really do. And I think that creating some type of core content will help you establish yourself better as an authority in your field. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you added that because that is truly like the purpose of it. It's that whole like, know, and trust factor, right? So somebody's not just going to land on your site cold and buy from you or invest from you or even call you or whatever your business is. They just aren't. I mean, unless you are like highly referred and all these crazy things, which isn't going to happen unless you have ways for people to get to know you. And they've got to like you first. They've got to decide, is this girl my fit? Do they have stuff that can help me? They've got to follow you for a while. You've got to nurture them. And that's what your core content does. It also has a purpose of taking people along a journey. Because I always say sometimes when people discover you, they're not ready for what it is that maybe you have to sell to them. Your core content can help educate them along the way and get them then ready to go and make it happen. And so you're absolutely right. It's all about that nurturing and letting somebody get to know you and then they trust you. And then of course, they give you all the dollar bills, right? They give you all the dollar bills. So good. So I do have a question from someone, Angie King. She is in my Facebook group, DIY Marketing with Melanie. And I want to just share really quick. She posted a question for us and I loved this question. So I wanted to kind of bring it up and I think it's good timing. And she's essentially saying like, how often should you be doing it? She's talking about starting a blog. I happen to know that Angie is an interior designer. And so she wants to create blogs and have, lots of images in them. She wants to help people. She personally wants to start with blogging because she likes to write and she's very good at writing. But now she's like, how much or how often should I do it? Because she's she's busy, but she also doesn't want to just write blog posts just to write blog posts. So, I get this where she's saying, I don't want to do it just to do it. I want to make sure it's valuable, which I love because don't post it just to post it, right? Make sure you take the time to provide some value. What are your thoughts on regularity and how often and all those things?
Well, so I started in like my online business journey as a blogger. Like I took a blogging course and like I knew all the things of starting blogging. And that's when I realized I hate writing, which is funny because I've written 2 books and like, I have so much of my show notes and everything like that. So, but I did start with this perspective and I learned from someone that was like, you have to do it at least once a week. And that was really where I had that first instilled in me. And then I've since had other mentors and people in my world tell me having at least weekly content is the bare minimum. Now, I have people that say, well, I just can't make it happen. I can't make it happen. I have to do twice a week, or twice a month until I can get it. Well, then if that's what you have to do, if that is your absolute like bare minimum to get started, then get started there. But just know that it may not be enough to create that deeper connection. And what I always tell people with podcasts, like, and I don't know about you, Melanie, but I know we both love podcasts. And I have certain episodes or shows that I listen to that are baked into my routine. Like there's a certain show that comes out on a Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I got my AirPods in and I'm like, I'm ready to listen to that show because I know it's going to be there. And I have listened to it for more than a year. And I just know they show up every single week at this certain time. And they're just habitual. Like they're just part of my life now. And that is how I want content creators to think about their content. I know Jamie's here. Shout out Jamie. She goes live in her Facebook group. I think it's every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Why do I know that? Because Jamie has done that for several months in a row. She's consistent. And that's how you have to think about your own content. It's not about how can I just throw something out there, but where can I add the value? And this is where we can get into blog, vlog, or podcast. But where can I add the value to my audience that's actually relevant and it makes them want to go see, well, I wonder what Melanie's up to this week. I wonder what Jamie's doing. I wonder what Krystal talked about on her podcast this week, because they always deliver something of value that's of interest to me. So that's kind of my take on that.
Yeah, I think that I always think about the analogy someone once said to me, and it was kind of like, for me, because I work on it, but you know what? I got to get a little bit better at some of my processes. We always talk about this, like I'm really good at teaching people how to do things, but I'm not necessarily like, don't necessarily lead by example. But I mean, it's like somebody said, well, what about Grey's Anatomy when it first came out? Well, first of all, it first came out, it was on Sunday nights, by the way. I don't know if you know that. I don't know if you started with season 1, but it was Sunday nights. Then it moved to Thursday.
I on Netflix. I had to get the Blu-rays on Netflix into my college dorm to catch up because I didn't watch the first season.
That's hilarious.
The season, but then it's been religious ever since.
So
I've seen every single one.
The analogy was, imagine if every Thursday, what if it was like, oh, actually, guys, it's Tuesday this week. And then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks later or it's 3 weeks later. And you're like, oh, you know what? We finally got the show done. So it's going to go out on Sunday. Like, that would not be a pleasant experience, of course, for any of that. She says every Wednesday, 17 months and counting. All right, Jamie, Miss, teacher's pet. I don't know. But here's the thing. It works. Jamie, we can talk about Jamie. She's a star this year. She's had a great year. She, she pivoted this year. She helps people with their finances, and she took on the role of all this PPP crap and EIDL or I, whatever, all the acronyms, pandemic, government assistance. She took it on and she was like, I'm going to do this. But you know what? She already had a captive audience that trusted her, and she's seen a lot of success because of it. And that's what's really cool. And I'm really happy for Jamie for sure. So, consistency is key, she says, for both you and your audience. So I totally agree. And I think that I think it's a great segue, like you said, to talk about what is the difference between, podcasting versus vlogging versus blogging. So they are obviously different formats. Podcasting is audio. You listen to it in an app or whatever. And then vlogging, I was like, should I say YouTubing? YouTubing has become like Kleenex for vlogging. You know what I mean? But vlogging, I think it can be done in multiple platforms now. Obviously, YouTube is probably the most popular social media platform where people post regular video blogs, which is where vlogging comes from. And then, of course, blogging is just written articles that are on your website. But blogging's tricky because my blogs include my audio from my podcast, and some blogs include embedded videos. So, let's talk about this a little bit, these different formats, because I have another question that came from someone, and she's basically like, I don't know which one to pick. So I want to help her pick which one she should pick. So let's talk about the differences and similarities between some of these.
Well, I want to give you my take on my experience because I've done all three.
Which is why you're here.
All three. Yeah. I'm like, well, but Melanie and I also and we have thought about you. Whoever, if you're watching this right now, we thought about you. We took you into consideration on how we prepared what we were going to talk about today, because the one thing we did not want you to walk away from this conversation is overwhelmed. Yep. We do not want to overwhelm anybody because Melanie and I are the tech geeks and we nerd out on all this stuff. So I want to go back to, if I had to make that decision again, if I had to pick between a podcast, doing videos, and blogging, where would I start? I say podcasting simply because, for one, I'm a busy mom. I have 3 kids. I can podcast with my hair in a bun, no makeup on, in my workout stuff. And that is still very appealing to me. I don't do it all the time, but it's something I can do it in my office. I could do it in my closet if the echo is bad in my office. I could do it when I'm traveling on the road. Used to, we would go visit family a lot more often. In 2020, we haven't been able to, but I could do it right on my phone. I can literally grab my phone, open the voice memos app, and I can record a podcast. So I like the accessibility of being able to podcast anywhere. Whereas with blogging, the writing part does not come as natural to me. I do still have a blog, but here we're going to share some life hacks. Okay. I do not write everything that is on my blog. Those are bits and pieces of my podcast outline. It's partial transcripts, and it's pieced together content that I've taken from audio files. So we're letting the cat out of the bag.
You cheater.
But I don't I'm a cheater. I'm 100%. I'm a cheater. I'm not a full blown, because the cursor of a Google Doc or a Word, blinking at me, I can't handle it. I will lose my mind. If it's just, I can't write. It paralyzes me. But if you give me a microphone and I can talk it out, and I can actually it's how I process. I mean, you hear about how kids learn. We have kids. It's you're either audible, visual, a physical learner, whatever that looks like. I process by way of audio. So then I take that audio and I turn it into a transcript. And then whenever I'm feeling really spunky, I will do a video, which I can turn into a podcast, which I can later turn into a blog. And that's just kind of how it happens. So I would encourage anybody that's watching this to think, how can I process information the best that comes naturally to me? Because Mel, I think that you, from the first time we even met, you just showing up on video, it's just I'm here. Let's do this. You're not nervous. You're not oh my God, you're not red in the face. Oh my God, I'm going to say something dumb. I'm going to do I've seen so many people that freak out about live video. Go back to how I was on Periscope, but you're no, what's up guys? I'm here. Let's do this. And you just, so what's your take on that?
Well, what's really funny is, I did not use, so yes, I think that where I am today in my life today, embracing just authenticity and just becoming true to yourself and understanding, and just that whole process of getting comfortable in your own skin, that is a process. I mean, I think especially for women, I think women tend to struggle with that even more. But I will tell you something really funny. A funny story is, in high school, I was in mass media, which was essentially TV production, radio production. But we were using tapes and camcorders, old school stuff. I'm 40, so this is a long time ago. And we were using some old equipment because it was archaic practically. But I was the director for our little news show stuff. But they also were trying to get me to be on camera all the time because I was funny. I was entertaining. I was our freaking high school mascot, for crying out loud. Wouldn't you think that I would want to be on camera, be good on camera? So I was sure, I'll do it. Krystal, I swear to God, I had no idea. But once I sat there and that camera was on and I had I hated it. I was terrible. My pits were sweating. I was awful. Like I couldn't even, I couldn't smile. Like, I remember my teacher, she was like, oh my God. She's like, what is wrong with you? She was like, who are you? I mean, I like totally morphed into this person that like I didn't even know myself. And so I was way more comfortable behind the camera, strategizing and directing then. And that was, 23, longer ago, years ago. And now it's totally different. And I think that a lot of it is just the journey in your life that you come through. But, of course I have times where I get nervous. It depends on my audience or what I'm talking about. But, I think to your point is, to help you decide, part of it is truly you got to figure out a couple things. What is most comfortable to you and most natural? Because back to Angie's point, who posted earlier, you only have so much time. And if you pick the harder format, it's going to take you longer. You're going to absolutely hate it. You're going to begrudgingly, what is that? You're going to do it begrudgingly, but you're going to hate the process. And you know what you're probably going to do? You're probably going to quit. Yep. And so I think there's a catch-22 here though, because and this is why I like live video. So before, you asked the question, what would you start with? Well, if it were today, if I was starting my business today, knowing what I know today and what's accessible to us today, for me, it would be live video because literally all I have to do is I take out a phone, which I already have, and I click on a couple free things and I'm ready to go. Whereas back in the day, to create videos, you needed a camera. It was just harder. So it was a bit more of a laborious process. But for me, live video is click it and go, right? And for you, it's kind of the same thing with podcasting. I mean, as you know, there are ways where it's kind of like click it and go. You just don't even have to put makeup on or pants or anything, whatever you want to do. So I think some of it is what is your natural feeling, but also what do you have accessible to you? What is going to work for you and work? Because again, going back to doing it consistently, you've got to be able to kind of embrace the process, but also it's got to be something that's going to work in your cycle. And for a lot of people, that might just be writing because you know what? The tech, all the other crap, forget it. It may just be writing for them. But I think that something that is going to be really important that we point out is that you may start with one format, but do not stop there because all of these formats go together. And that is kind of like the whole, hey, we don't want to scare you or anything, but you kind of need to do all of it. Like, I hate to say this. You kind of, because if you have a podcast, guess what? You really should write show notes. And that is kind of like writing a blog.
We weren't going to overwhelm them though. No.
I know. But y'all, if you go to Krystal's show notes, they're like pretty dang good. If you go to my show notes, you can tell who hates show notes more. That's all I'm going to say. I can tell you that.
But to your point, it goes back to a process. It goes back to, y'all, I told you I started my journey blogging. I hate writing. I hate it. But I figured out how to finagle the system to make it work better for me because I know that I want to have show notes for my podcast to support listeners. And I know that I hate writing. How can I make this work? So y'all, I do the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. You're not going to find.
Oh, no. I do the bare minimum. I do the bare minimum. And you know that.
That's true. I do the bare minimum to my standards.
Yeah. I do the bare minimum to my own, which is like.
Yeah. Oh. But to go back to what you're like, how to decide. Let's talk about budget real fast because I believe, and both of us talked about this. You can do video with a phone. You can do audio with a phone. You can do copy with a phone. So I just released a podcast episode today that was 4 reasons why you really haven't started. And people want to tell me it's the equipment, it's the software. And I said, you know what? We all what is it? I totally butchered this. Hang on. I'm going to try to get it right. Excuses are just like buttholes. We all have them and they all stink, right? Yeah. Okay. I totally butchered it.
Oh, if I had a VA watching, I'd be like, quote that, put that on a social media graphic. This video replay is going viral.
But it's so true. Everyone wants to tell me, oh, it's the equipment, it's the software. This is why I haven't started. And I'm like, that's crap. Like you are that is an excuse for why you haven't started. Like, let's dig a little deeper. You're like, I get it. You're scared to be on camera. You don't know what to talk about. You're afraid you're going to look dumb. Like all those are legitimate reasons. And we can help you through that mindset stuff. But just to say, I don't know what equipment and software, No,
Yep.
no. That's gone. That excuse is no longer an option. You can use your phone. If you have a phone, you can use your phone to get started. So I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah.
Down.
I think bottom line what Krystal's saying is that there's the budget, it can't really be an excuse anymore, and neither can the software, the tech, because literally there's like free apps you can like freaking create a podcast with just your phone. Facebook, we all have Facebook. It's, essentially free to click go live, and you only need your phone, which you already have. If you don't have a phone, then we've got some other issues, right? So I do think that the key point is we just can't use budget or tech anymore. Now, I'm not to say that the tech doesn't have a little bit of a learning curve, but it is so much easier than it used to be. I'm using an application called StreamYard to do this, and it feels super fancy to some people. But as you know, Krystal, when you get in there and you start plugging and playing, it's really not that. I mean, it's very, 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 very doable. So real quick, so Tara had posted this question, and it's basically about this. And I think that, I wanted to make sure that we pointed out, and she's saying she likes to watch YouTube videos because she's a visual learner, but she also likes podcasts. And she's kind of just like, she's comfortable with live videos. So that was her first thought. But then she's thinking, well, what if people don't necessarily need to see her? So she doesn't know what to do and what to start. And I think that we basically just answered this for her is I think Tara, needs to start out with one. She needs to think about what is her topic, and does it require the visual aspect? And if it doesn't, and if she's leaning towards podcasting because it's maybe just easy and fun, she thinks her audience is going to like it, great. But she's saying she thinks live video would be super easy. Well, great. What, to your point earlier, do the live video and then repurpose the audio from it and put it into a podcast, right? I think that's what she should do in this situation.
100% agree. So like for anybody that has never done live video or YouTube pre-recorded, I find pre-recorded videos a lot harder to work with, simply because you have to plan the content, you have to edit it, you have to upload it, you have to make it SEO optimized. And just for anybody watching that's wondering, I did a year and a half of just podcasts before I ever introduced YouTube. And I think that this is important because Billy and I were talking earlier. We're like, well, what's a reasonable amount of time for you just to focus on one, whether you choose blogging, podcasting, video? I feel that you could focus on just one for 6 months. Like, so let's say you want to do a podcast, because I want everybody to do a podcast. So let's say you do a podcast, and then you're like, I just want to do the bare minimum. I don't want to have show notes. I don't want to do anything fancy. Then just do that for just 6 months. And then you may find in 3 months, you're like, no, I got this. I know what I'm talking about. I know my content. I know my audience. I think I want to try something else. Okay, well, then let's branch into show notes, like a blog, or let's start going live while you're recording your podcast. But the idea isn't to throw all this information at you today, so you're just like, I still don't know what to do. But we want you to decide on one. Pick one that you're going to focus on, let's say for the first quarter of 2021. What is the one thing? So if you're watching right now, I actually want you to put it in the comments. If you have a YouTube, a video, YouTube, podcast, or a blog, or you're going to focus on one, which one are you going to focus on for the first quarter of 2021? We're not asking for a lifetime commitment. We just want to know which one you're going to get started with. So
I love it. I'm going to bump up your audio a little bit because somebody says your audio needs bumped up. And a new feature in StreamYard is I can go in and adjust your audio. So yeah, I think that I do want to know what everybody's planning on doing. I want to say hi to Naomi. She says, I always get caught up in figuring out my natural vibe. And she was posting this when we were talking about audio, video, and all the things. And so, yeah, I think part of the way you can discuss or figure it out is, just go all in on what feels natural. And she's posting now. Naomi says, she does it all, but she's going to focus on her podcast. And Naomi, I'm with you on that because I also do it all. I have a YouTube channel. I do live video. I have a podcast. And one of the areas that I kind of got to a point where I was like, God, I can't do all of these things like regularly. So for me, what I've chosen to do now is it's live video. I am live video regularly inside of my DIY Facebook or DIY Marketing with Melanie Facebook group. And for me, that's because that's what I can do and I can create. And then to Krystal's point, you may get one of those episodes and you're like, ooh, I I can repurpose that one. And then you can repurpose it. And I do think that you make a great point, Krystal, not to feel pressure that you have to repurpose right away, right out of the gate.
Right.
You will find the flow. Like I didn't repurpose anything for a really long time. I mean, the only thing I maybe repurposed was like a Facebook Live video. Every once in a while, I would email it to my list. I would email them the link, the replay. But I only just started in the latter part or the earlier part of this year, taking clips from some of my live broadcasts and putting them into the podcast. And I know that you have a podcast that you do as a daily podcast, but you've lately started, and you didn't at first, lately you've started going live on Facebook and doing and recording it and talking about it and showing a little behind the scenes. So you're actually repurposing but you're doing it in the process as well, which is I think really great as well. So
I remember who advised me to do that.
man, must have been one of your brilliant business besties. Charmaine says that she's going to focus on the podcast. Nyla says on the podcast. Look at all these podcasters. Charmaine says that she's definitely doing live video much easier than pre-record. I totally agree with you on that too, Krystal. Yeah. I mean, clicking the button, for me, clicking the button and going live is so much easier than having to feel. I feel like when it's pre-recorded, it has to be polished and extra edited. And it's just, I don't know. I'm not really down with that so much, but so, okay. So Krystal, since we have all these people who are talking about their podcasts, I do want to take a second and I want to talk about something very important. And that is your book, your amazing book that you have that came out. When did this come out?
Pretty. It
is pretty. It feels nice in my hand too. Like, I'm like, I got a friend that has a published book, y'all. Like, this is cool.
And I have to tell you, y'all, I hate yellow. I do. Like, I probably shouldn't say that out loud. I hate the color yellow, but I love it for this book. It pops. So yeah, for the Bingeworthy Podcast, you can go check it out. I published it in October 20th of this year. And it is basically everything you need to know to really get started with getting your podcast up and running. Like if your goal is to have a podcast first part of 2021, you can buy this book. I actually will have the Audible version very soon. I'm so excited about that. But it's the step-by-step that you're looking for. If that's really what you need, if you have all these excuses, like we talked about, then I want you to go grab this book immediately. It will take all those excuses away. It'll make everything so much easier on why we focus on core content. Everything we've talked about here today is going to be explained in this book, like why it's so important. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Charmaine says, I'm reading it at the moment to help me launch my podcast in January. Awesome. There you go. Yes. I wanted to point out the book because it is really good, you guys. And it's funny, our girl Amy even says her only regret is that the book wasn't out when she started her podcast. So there you go. I mean, Amy has had a podcast since 2014, and which is how Krystal and I became huge followers of Amy's and learned to do a lot of things that we've done. And it's because Amy was posting regular content on her podcast. But I do want to talk about this because one of the things that's really relevant is even in the book. So in the book, Krystal goes through she gives you everything you need to start, launch, publish, all the things. But to the point of this topic, she also goes into a lot of the strategy stuff, and she talks about repurposing the podcast. And she says she's talking about creating videos, and she's a big believer in video and live video as well. And she says, you can create these videos on Facebook Live, Insta Stories, YouTube, TikTok, or wherever your listeners are hanging out. And here's a few ideas: behind the scenes details, clips of interviews in progress, your editing processes, planning new content, upcoming topics, and what's new on the podcast. And so I just wanted to point the book out because anybody who's thinking about, starting a podcast, or even if you started one and it's not going that great, get this book, you guys. It's really, really good. And I know personally, I feel blessed to have Krystal as one of my very good friends who I can literally call anytime on Voxer and get all the answers to my questions. But Krystal's only one person, and she can't be besties with everybody. So you need the book. That's the next best thing. Or they can join your group, right, Krystal?
Yes. You can join me at krystalproffitt.com/podcast community. That's a link to our free Facebook group where everybody that's chatting here today, like I know Nyla, Naomi, Charmaine, I know a lot of them are coming from there. And yeah, we geek out on all things podcasting. So if that's your thing, that's what you want to learn about, I would love for you to join us. Melanie, I'm so grateful that our paths have crossed, and the shenanigans behind the scenes are just, they make my day. They
You're not
make my
supposed to
day.
tell anybody about all the shenanigans. Don't tell them all about it. Krystal, feel the same. I'm so blessed that our worlds collided and we have become such good friends. And you are truly like a yin to my yang. And as we always say, live video and podcasting kind of goes together like peanut butter and jelly. While live video might be my jam, podcasting is your jam. And I'm so glad to see how you show up. I always say you're so consistent. You do such a good job repurposing. And I always feel like so blessed that I can bring you in and share you with my community as well. So, and I know that you have a hard stop right now. You got to go get the kiddo. So I'm going to let you go, and I will stay on here. I'm going to answer some questions. So if anybody has questions or you want to take this topic a little deeper, I'm going to stick around and answer any questions that anybody has. But Krystal, thank you again so much for being here. I appreciate you so much.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me, Mel.
You bet. See you, babe. Oh my gosh, you guys. See, seriously, Krystal is the best. Like, she's amazing. I love her. And I knew I needed to bring her in because she would have this, we have a lot of similar opinions and thoughts when it comes to marketing and marketing yourself. But I love bringing somebody else on because they can just kind of add to it and they can share extra things. And I also do know that I can tell you I've had a lot of lead generation success with my podcast. The podcast is called DIY Marketing School with Melanie Diane Howe. And I've had a lot of people have come into my Facebook community and they found out about my Facebook community because of the podcast. And so I will say that I have seen bigger results from the podcast than I actually expected I would. And so that's why I love it. And I one of the things that is really rewarding for me is when I go to a conference or I go somewhere and someone's like, "Oh, I love your podcast." And I'm like, a stranger. It's not like a friend or a relative or someone that's been in my world for a long time. And so I do believe that podcasts are powerful. And something that I wanted to talk about that we didn't quite touch on, and I wanted to be really sensitive to Krystal's time, and because I knew that she had to go. But there's something that's really interesting that you have to think about when it comes, and this is why I actually believe that you do need to start somewhere. As Krystal said, start with one, get really good at it. But then what's really great about that repurposing aspect is, let's say you do I'm going to tell you how my podcast started. Okay. So I've been doing live videos for years. My first 10 episodes on my podcast are things that I had already done a live video on, or I had already talked about in a presentation, from way in the past. And so that is literally taking the exact same idea, the same outline, and just instead of it being a video, you record it into a microphone and publish it to a podcast. And so that's why I think that it's really important to focus on, pick one format, do it for a while. And also you'll be able to know, wow, that one live video I did, it just went crazy. People loved it. They thought it was so helpful. And then you'll know when it comes time to repurpose or do a podcast later, you're going to talk about that very same topic, right? You already know what's going to be successful when you launch that second format. And so that's why I do think that it's really great to start with one, see how things go, but then you can repurpose those topics. Or you can go back and pull the audio or whatever you want to do and repurpose it that way as well, of course. But something to think about is that, people tell me all the time, they'll say, well, I don't do videos because I don't watch videos. That's what they say to me. And I'm like, okay, well, what about your audience? And, their audience, just because they don't watch video does not necessarily mean that their audience isn't watching video. And so, but the other thing the reason why I like a blended approach is because people might see something that you do on a live video, but then when they hear it in the podcast, 3 weeks later or whatever, they're going to consume it differently. And so think about you when you're consuming a audio, a podcast. You might be in the shower, you might be walking, you might be in the car, right? You're probably not real distracted. You're probably pretty focused and you're listening and you're soaking it in, right? But then maybe it's not as inspiring. But then you go and you see the same thing, the same content covered in a video, whether it be a live video recap or a YouTube version that's the same thing. And you might consume it differently then. You might be more inspired because you get to see the person's personality, whatever, right? The same is going to go for your audience. And so I actually think that sometimes it's good for people to hear the message, but also see the message sometimes too. And so that's why I actually do think that podcasting and live video go together like peanut butter and jelly. And so one of the strategies that I personally love is for you to do your podcast, right? But then maybe you go live inside of your Facebook community or on your page or on your YouTube channel. And let's say, for example, that podcast is like 5 key components to XYZ. Well, your Facebook Live, you could take a deep dive into one of those components, like even deeper, and expand on that topic. And then you can also say, I also talk about the rest of these other 4 components on my podcast episode number, blah, blah, blah. Go check it out. And so you're actually driving traffic, right? You're helping drive traffic to it. But you don't have to, I think when people start thinking about blogging and vlogging and podcasting, they think they have to come up with triple the amount of content ideas. You don't. For one, you can repurpose stuff. So a live video, you can just use the audio and put it in your podcast. You're not creating anything new. You're just taking it and exporting the format. But my whole point is that you don't have to come up with new topics. And I think that's something that people struggle with, is they think when they start thinking about video and all the other things, they're thinking it's extra topics, extra work. And that is going to create content fatigue. I have been there. I've had content fatigue where you're literally like, I can't come up with any more ideas. I'm done. And sometimes that's because of your process, your working process. So something I want you to remember is also is that just because you recorded a podcast on a topic 3 weeks ago doesn't mean that you can't do a Facebook Live on it 3 weeks later, right? I do this all the time. I repeat myself all the time. I talk about the same things all the time. I talk about the importance of live video. I talk about the applications that I use, Canva, StreamYard, and others. I also talk about authenticity, your personal brand, putting yourself out there. I talk about the importance of having your profile picture be your actual face, not your kids or your dogs or your house or your hobby. Like, I talk about these same things all the time. And I mean, people know it. And I talk about different strategies for coming up with content ideas. And I do it and I just shave it differently every time, right? And it works. And what's really, really cool is that sometimes somebody maybe missed your live video, but then they heard the podcast, or vice versa, right? And so always remember that when you have these different formats, it doesn't mean that everybody is like a super fan and listening to everything you do and watching everything you do. And even if they are, like I said, they maybe need to consume it in 2 different formats for it to really sink in. Now, I know that Krystal and I were covering, and we really don't want you to get overwhelmed. It's very important that you not think about all this. If you're just getting started, do not worry about this right now. Do not worry about repurposing. Don't go there. Get one format, get really good at it. Go with the one that's natural, one that feels good, the one that you're excited to do, right? And go all in with it. And then later you can repurpose it. So Charmaine says, repurposing is the best. Most people didn't see the content the first time. I totally agree, Charmaine. I have this happen all the time where I will think someone is like a loyal follower, and then they will all of a sudden they'll be on one of my shows and they'll be like, oh my gosh. And it's like, and maybe they heard it before. It just didn't sink in that time. Right. And so that's why I do love the whole consistency, and I love being able to create different formats for everybody. So, do you guys have any questions? Does anybody have any questions about this? I know that you guys are still here. Some of you are still here. If you have other questions to help you decide, how do you decide? If you're still stuck on deciding whether it be video or audio or words or whatever, post that. Let me know. I do want to say that live video, in my opinion, is 100%, I think, the easiest format to just go. Podcasting, of course, requires you have to have a host, and you have to you do have to be able to create your audio. There are ways where you just literally record into an app and it creates your podcast. I just think live video is so simple from a barrier of entry standpoint. And I also think that if you can do live video, you can definitely do a podcast. I think so. The thing that might get you hung up is your editing. You might feel like it has to be perfect, and you might try to over edit. I don't edit my podcasts like hardly at all. I pretty much record them, and that's what you get. All the stutters and the ums and all those things as well. Every once in a while, I will stop it, pause it, and kind of go. But I'm not much of an editing person. I'm not much of an over editor. If I have to edit things, I'm never going to finish it. I'm never going to get it done. And that's why I love live video, because you go and it's over. There is no massive amount of work to do. You can plan it and you can structure it and you can organize it, of course. And there's certainly a strategy to it. And there's a way to create very effective, engaging live videos. But when it comes to it, you go live and it's like, whew, it's out there, right? And that's what I love is you click in broadcast and you're like, bam, I just created an awesome piece of content that I just help people, or I can use and reuse later and later. And so I'm super passionate about that for sure. So I do want you guys to know that literally today, the doors are open to my course. It's actually a boot camp. It's an implementation program, and it's about live video. And you can get there. You can go to melaniediane.com/go live, and I'll just show it to you. I mean, you guys are literally seeing this for the first time. I am literally, this is it. Like, so what it is it's an implementation program. And so for 4 weeks, you're going to get, first you get a course. It's an online course. You get all the videos to support you, help you with your strategy, help you plan. That's a big piece, is planning. And I'm going to help you do that. I'm going to help you with the tech. I'm going to show you how to do things like this that I'm doing right now. I'm also going to show you how to go all crazy and have way, way more fun and do things like this, which are so fun to do and to add into your streams, but a lot easier than people think. Everyone thinks, oh, you need fancy stuff to do that. You really don't. And so I'm all about it. So I wanted to share this with you guys for sure. So I'm going to talk about the tech. You're going to get a tech library that's going to give you all kinds of tutorials, all kinds of how-tos, all the things. We're going to talk about lighting. We're going to talk about audio. We're going to talk about cameras. We're going to talk about the way to look and sound your best so that you feel confident. That's the biggest thing. You know, Krystal made a comment earlier. She said, we always hear these excuses about why people aren't going live or why they're not doing podcasts. It doesn't usually have anything to do with the tech. I know that the tech can be overwhelming. I take pride in the fact that I actually make that a lot less overwhelming. I'm very good at breaking things down and making it simpler. I also have spent years avoiding big expenses. I've spent years avoiding complexities. So I have found the simple strategies, the simple tech, the simple ways to do things. And that's part of this program. But the biggest part of the program is actually the implementation. And so that's why for 4 weeks, you are going to get me each week, twice a week, coaching you, mentoring you, giving you feedback. You can show me your videos. We're going to get live coaching, Q&A support throughout the whole thing. But the whole point is it's a boot camp. So I don't know if you've ever done a boot camp like at a gym, but you don't go and learn what the exercises are. You go and you do them. And so that's what this is all about. So you're going to do it in a safe environment with other people learning alongside you. And you're going to take action, because action is the only thing that is going to get you confident, more and more confident. So I told in the beginning of this story, I used to hate being on camera. I did, even though now people are like, "What? You're such a natural." No, I wasn't. The way you get confident is by taking more action and doing more things, putting yourself out, getting yourself into that discomfort zone, right? But I also understand that it's hard to start there, especially as a lot of us are solopreneurs. We don't have a team of people to support us or to be on the other side of the camera cheering us on. It's you by yourself in your home office or in your office, right? But not when you're in a community like this, in this implementation program. You're going to do it alongside other people, and you're going to get to have the support. And that's what it's all about. Implementation. I did this program earlier in the year and as a beta, and we did it a little different. I spent a lot of time on education and training, less time on the coaching and the implementation. I did Q&As, but every single one of them, when the program was over, they're like, now I feel like I'm ready to take action, but with your support. And I wish I had you for 4 more weeks. So I switched it up this time. So this time you're going to get all the trainings to watch on your own time, but the biggest focus is going to be about coaching and mentoring you, and you taking action and practicing and getting that feedback that you need, but really ultimately getting that confidence so that you don't feel terrified or like your pits are sweating when you're getting ready to go live. You're going to go live and actually be excited about it and look forward to it. And you'll even be just like me, where you're like, man, I need an excuse to go live today because I really want to. I want to go live today. Like, I literally sit around and I'm like, I just want to go live. And so I do that sometimes. Sometimes I literally will just go live and work on something and show people how to like do stuff, right? And I just, because I like being around people. I enjoy the process so much. It's fun. Like, I actually enjoy it now. And so that's what I want for you. That's ultimately what I want for you. So you can check this program out. You can go to melaniediane.com/go live, and you can check out the program. I'd love to see you in there. If you have questions, DM me, shoot me an email. I will send you a personal video response and answer whatever questions you may have, for sure. So I want to know what you guys think. Let's see. Nas says, when you repurpose an audio podcast into video, that means you are actually doing it over in a live format. Yes, that's actually true. So when you repurpose an audio podcast into video, that means you're actually doing it over in a live format. Not necessarily. So if you do a podcast and you re-record it and you record the same content, but you do it on video, then yeah, you could do that in live and it would be live. You also, some people will actually export audio from a podcast and they will just put the audio behind like a static image and they'll just put that on YouTube because some people literally like to listen. They're on YouTube. They subscribe to you on YouTube, but they just want to listen to it's almost like an audiogram. And so that is another way to do it as well. I hope that I'm answering that question. I'm not sure if I answered that correctly or understood the question. Let's see. So Lisa says, great discussion. I've been going live this year for fun, writing sprints with online friends. Fun. I have enjoyed the process so much that I'm actively working to build a new personal professional crossover project. Scary and fun at the same time. That's awesome, Lisa. That's super awesome. Yeah. I think that when people I think that when you try new things and you embrace things that might feel hard or sound scary, you actually learn new things about yourself and you may even discover new talents, or you may find a new skill that other people need to learn from you as well. And so I think that sounds really, really cool. So you guys, I'm going to hop off here. It's 3:00 now at my time. So we've been here for an hour. Those of you that are new, I so appreciate you being here. It was so great to meet you, Naomi, Nyla, and Charmaine, and all you guys that came in here that I don't know personally very well. So I would love to see you over in the DIY Marketing with Melanie group. We do a lot of the same stuff. Krystal's in that group. She hops in there all the time and helps out. Basically, it's a community. It is a community for people that are marketing themselves DIY style. You're doing it yourself. And that's very much what Krystal and I are. And we always geek out on all the things DIY style. And so if that is you and you want to be a part of a community that is all about marketing and business growth and all the things, that's essentially what it is. It's actually really similar to Krystal's community as well. We just it's not as much laser focused on podcasting. So I'd love to see you guys over in there. Like I said, Krystal's over there too. And we have a lot of fun over there. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And if you don't have this book and you're thinking about a podcast, or you have a podcast and you feel like you need a little help to redo it, you need this book. Krystal's book is absolutely incredible. And I truly do wish that it was written when I started my podcast, just like Amy Porterfield said. So, all right, I love you guys. Thanks for being here. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing in the world of your businesses. The world needs you. So put yourself out there, whether it be a podcast, whether it be video, whether it just be blogs, it doesn't matter. Just don't stop putting yourself out there, because truly, don't let your gifts go ungiven. The world needs your gifts and you have to share them with the world. And that's what you're going to do in a podcast, in videos, or in blogs. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys and you'll tune in next time. Thanks again. See you guys later.